Okay, welcome back. This is video 4 in the series of doc editing with Adobe Premiere Pro. The next thing we're going to do is we are going to address the transitions between these scenes. Never should we watch an entire short doc and it be wall-to-wall interview. It's going to be exhausting for our audience, and as well, when we really look at the best documentaries, they're as present tense and active as possible. So we need to try to be active storytellers. Now, there is a need for interviews. I've shot a lot of interviews, and I use a lot of interviews in my documentaries as a way of delivering information. But then I take advantage of these in-between spaces to be able to show my participant or my character doing something that pertains to the subject matter. Okay. So our first natural break, and I'll call them natural breaks or nat breaks, they serve as transitions, and we're coming out of this chapter here.
To everyone in our region, not just those who can afford it or who can travel to a grocery store.
Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to give myself at first a little more space here, and I'll show you another tool in the toolkit. Track select forward tool, and I have a double arrow pointing right. If I click, hold, and drag, or if I click anywhere here, it activates everything that's to the right, and then I can just move everything out of the way. I want to give myself a lot of ample space and then edit it down and move things back if I need to. Okay, so the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to pick a scene that I've shot and kind of get a sense of what I have in terms of footage. So I have Andrea getting ready to set up the donation station booth at the Athens Farmers Market on a Saturday morning. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to zoom way in on this, and I'm going to start putting clips together with image and sound that kind of show action over time. And so the first thing I'll do is just kind of go through this footage.
How are your new pants?
Use my mark in or my mark out points just to select
Brian's going to be shooting with us today.
Hi, Becky.
Hi.
just to select portions of these clips that I think I might like to use. This shows them getting ready at the Community Food Initiative site.
Okay, we're going to go to the farmer's market now. We can set up.
Awesome.
And then we see them at the farmer's market, or we have some farmer's market shots here. Them getting ready and getting set up. So I want to show a little bit of that process from beginning to end, but I'm not going to show everything in detail. These nap breaks, you can experiment with how long they are, and we'll see just organically how long this one ends up being, and then we might chop it back in order to fill time. So I'm just going to start placing some clips into the timeline, and I'm going to bring both image and sound in. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to bring them in on the V2, V1 track. This has a lot to do with project organization, but if my interview right now is the only thing on the V1 and A1, then I'm going to put all other footage above or below that, even if there's nothing in the V1, A1 track right now. And we'll see why I do that later. But I'm just going to go ahead and bring some clips in and just start stacking them up. This takes us to the end of the first stage here, where they're like, okay, time to go to the farmer's market, let's go check it out. Now, first of all of these were shot in a lower resolution, so I need to highlight them all, scale to frame size to enlarge them to fill my 1920 by 1080 frame. I think I'm actually going to include this shot here too. Okay, now that I've got my clips set up here, let's play them through and see how it looks.
How are your new pants? Brian's going to be shooting with us today.
Hi, Becky.
Hi. Okay, we're going to go to the farmer's market now.
Okay.
And set up.
Awesome.
Okay, I'm liking the visual flow of it, but it's pretty difficult to watch, especially with all the big changes in sound. And so there's definitely some refinement that I need to do here in order to really kind of make this work. But generally, I kind of like this sequence. And so what I'm going to do before I move on with the rest of the natural break is just kind of show you a little bit of an editing technique that I like to use when working with natural footage, both image and sound, cutting together action sequences in documentary editing. What I like to do first is I like to checkerboard my audio. So I like to alternate between two different tracks. Doesn't matter if it's A2 and A1 or A2 and A3, it really doesn't matter. Let's go ahead and zoom in on this so we can take a closer look. What we need to do is we not only need to balance these sounds out in terms of volume, we need to have them flow a little bit better and to avoid these abrupt cuts. That one feels all right. That one's abrupt. Here, this one's really abrupt. Oof. And then this one's really abrupt. So, first of all, this one is our loudest one. So we're going to bring this down in our volume bar. And then overall, this is what our approach is going to be. What I'm going to do is I'm going to deselect this linked selection. So remember, linked selection is whenever I click on a video, its accompanying audio is also highlighted. But if I deselect that, then I can edit them independently. So what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to extend the ends of the audio out a little bit and create a little bit of overlap, both where it begins and where it ends. We call these J cuts and L cuts. And we do that throughout the audio here just a little bit. Maybe a little bit more with this one since it's so loud. Now this still won't solve the whole problem because we still have abrupt beginnings and endings, and now we've got even overlap. So we might even created more problems. So the finishing touch on this is actually going to be adjusting and giving us little fade outs and fade ups wherever our volume or wherever our audio starts and stops. Now we can do this with transitions in Premiere, but I like to do it with keyframes. So here's our audio bar here, right? And we can lower and raise our audio to any level we want. But we can also do that to portions of the clip as well by setting keyframes. And so if I hover over this bar, you see that my cursor changes. So if I hold down the command key while I hover over this bar, I can click and create these little nodes or keyframes. And right now I'm going to create two of them, and I'm going to create two of them up here as well, toward the ends. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to hover over the last one, and I'm going to click, hold, and drag it down. So now I've got a fade up at the same approximate time that I have a fade down. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to do this everywhere that I've got an audio transition. Especially here, because this one is pretty gnarly. Now, these keyframes can be really close together because that means that the fade ups and fade outs are going to be really quick. We don't want big slow fade up and fade out. We want them to be pretty fast. So let's play this together now. And let's listen how it feels.
How are your new pants? Brian's going to be shooting with us today.
Hi, Becky.
Hi. Okay, we're going to go to the farmer's market now.
Okay.
And set up.
All right, pretty good. We actually dropped this sound a little bit too low, and maybe this sound is still a little bit too high. Let's see how this feels.
Hi, Becky.
Hi.
And I think what we need to do is bring this sound in just a little bit earlier.
Hi, Becky.
Hi. Okay, we're gonna go to the farmer's market now. Get set up.
Awesome.
Wow, much better. So you see that by alternating the audio, creating some overlap, and creating some quick fade up, fade outs using keyframes means that I can create a lot more seamless flow in the visual edit by actually just adjusting the audio. And so these clips seem to flow together visually very well just because of what the sound is doing. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to continue to build out this nap break, and I might do it in time lapse just so this video isn't too long. Okay, so you see I've edited a natural break here with, gosh, probably more than a dozen shots. We've already seen the beginning. I'm just going to play through little bits of it here and there just to quality control it.
Buys 1 pound of produce here at the market. By making a difference. Thank you. You know what?
That's why everybody's.
You can do it.
Use your legs, not your back.
Yeah, you do it. Look at that.
All right, so it looks like here I'm just going to shorten some things up and make some changes here.
It's not your back.
Yeah, you do it. Look at that.
Things went really well today. We're still counting the money, but I think we got a lot of donations even though there was really cold weather, so.
Yeah, good.
Okay, so it's not perfect. I might go back and do some other refining, but that would be our nap break that would show that process of setting up and having a day at the farmer's market. Now, the thing we have to do after creating this transition is to make sure our transition out of the interview segment into the natural break is clean. And then we also have to find a way back into an interview segment as well. So we're looking for what we call bridge clips. And so I'm going to go in here. This is going to be my bridge clip here. And I'm going to show you how I do this. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to move everything up using my track select forward. So I have my double arrow pointing right. So I click and I move everything forward till I see that it connects here visually. And then I'm going to go back into my select tool and I'm just going to lengthen out this audio just a little bit. Not too much though, because it's pretty loud. I might actually kind of create a third one to kind of fade this in a little more softly.
Travel to a grocery store.
Good. So we just have a little bit of sound creeping in. Maybe even a little bit more, a little bit sooner.
You can travel to a grocery store.
Let's try this.
Or you can travel to a grocery store.
So that sound, as long as that sound starts to come in a little bit before the clip, before the visual edit, that kind of telegraphs where we're going. And we need the same thing kind of coming out of this and into the next interview segment, but it kind of works in the opposite way. So what I'm actually going to do is I'm actually going to bring this in to where, actually let me see where this clip ends first. So to come out of a nap break into an interview, we kind of need a little bit of the same thing. We actually need to extend the image a little bit more. I hope I have some more on there. That might be the end of the clip. So this might be a pretty tight transition. Let's see if we can do it. And then what we do is we bring this interview in underneath it as much as we can. And then fade this out as the interview comes in. A little too much.
It's not as simple as...
Almost there. We just need to make a little more adjustments to the sound to kind of fade that out a little bit faster.
As simple as just asking people for money at the farmer's market and expecting them, to trust that we're using this money wisely. We have to make connections with.
Okay. Good. And so now we've got our nap break as a transition with clean transitions coming out of the interview.
Can afford it, or you can travel to a grocery store.
And then coming out of the interview.
There's really cold weather, so. It's not as simple as just asking people for money at the farmer's market and expecting them, to trust that we are.
Good. So we would repeat that same process also in between chapters 2 and 3. And as you can see, I've also edited my second natural break, which has to do with distribution. So this is after the food and donations are collected at the farmer's market, and the food is now at Community Food Initiative's headquarters, and folks from community organizations and food pantries come and pick up that food, and they document everything, and that's a big part of their operation as well. So I cut together a natural break. This one's a bit shorter, and so you can see that our film is really coming along. We have now our 3 chapters with B-roll, and we have our 2 nap breaks to serve as transitional chapters. So you can see our film is really shaping up now and starting to look a lot more complicated in the timeline. So we'll move on to video 5. Video 5 is where we're going to edit our intro and our outro and take this to the next level. So we're nearing completion.